In here today. It is 12 o'clock, so we're going to get this started. Mr. Secretary, please call a roll.
Senator Carroll,
Present in the room.
Senator Caslin, Senator Givens, Senator Kerr, Senator McGarvey, Senator Meredith, Senator Nemus,
Present in the room.
Senator Webb, Senator West, Chairman McDaniel.
President, we have a quorum duly constituted to conduct business. First item on the agenda for today is Senate Bill 3, sponsored by President Stivers. Mr. President, if you'd like to come up, identify yourself for the record, and proceed, sir. Read it out loud. All right.
Robert Stivers, State Senator from 25th Senate District.
Your microphone, Mr. President.
Is it working now?
Yes.
Better? Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This is a bill that does not appropriate any state funds, but reauthorizes and reappropriates monies that we dealt with in the last session. Particularly, I'm going to kind of jump over to Section 2 on page 2, and you'll see a change of numbers from $575 million to $505,731,700. I'm going to start with that in saying those are the monies we thought were the appropriate monies to be paid into what is generally called the Unemployment Insurance Fund. Upon final calculation, that amount of money was not needed. The lesser amount was needed that is in that paragraph. That was monies from the American Rescue or ARPA dollars that we received that we're allowed to use that. We took that amount, and that was what was contained within the call, and that's critical, to assist and direct where that money should go. I will say this, people have said, why haven't you come up with a more prescriptive list? Well, we didn't feel it was appropriate in discussions to limit the executive branch on the policy we set because of the changing nature of this pandemic. Today, we are seeing, as Senator Meredith knows, an extensive run on our hospitals, sometimes due to lack of physical capacity and bed space, a lot of times more so related to the capacity of your personnel, that you have bed space, but you don't have personnel. You're also seeing it change now to where we're having a bigger problem in the hospitals for either one of the reasons or others versus reasons that you may see in long-term healthcare facilities. Some of them may be interconnected. So what this does is takes that money we did not use to pay the unemployment insurance excess and reappropriates it here. I have had calls about what this should do in going to EMS, things of that nature. It doesn't exclude that. It doesn't exclude anything. But if you look at the dollars, we say, look at what you should do. Testing, so we know how to deal with that, is in Section A. B, assisting to set up monoclonal antibody treatments and assisting in those, setting up of those treatments, providing for test and stay, because we just had in this room actual discussion about how Greene County has done it, how Fayette County is starting to run pilots with it, and somehow we need to make sure the dollars are there so they can use them where needed, but not be so prescriptive. If the governor would change the call, and I would say this, there was $134 million in ARPA funds, we could actually increase that number. And there was discussion in the exchange of information and bills that was sent to us that at one point in time the governor's office was thinking of making the call to $150 million. So as you go through that, you see, and some people wanted us to be very distinct and say the state do the clinics. I have talked to numerous healthcare providers, and instead of the state running the monoclonal clinics, in my area, talking to CHI, the Catholic system, the Baptist system, ARH, and Advent. Advent is just one small hospital in my town. They're already running the clinics. They're already providing the services around it. What they need is additional staffing. As one CEO told me, if I could get one more nurse, I could increase my distribution by over a third. So giving that flexibility is part of this. And again, it is not state funding, it's federal funding. If the call was increased, we could go with some additional funding. The other parts are fairly simple as you receive this. It is also to supplement everything that we have talked about in the other bills, but not be such that we would tie the governor's hands. So can there be money used for what I call differential pay? Yes, there could be, if that becomes a necessity, which it may be. Could it be used for test and state? Yes, it could be, but you will see how the priorities are set out. Now, one thing I want to say about the labor pool. It's a very difficult thing to deal with right now. In my discussions with the various systems, and I have talked to not just the ones in my area, but several out in the state or in other parts of the state. I'm going to give it this term. I don't know if an economist would give it this term, but we are really at a negative labor pool. And probably the best person that would know more about this is Senator Meredith. I keep kind of looking at him. There is not a pool of people to be hired out there. They're just not. They're actually seeing what labor pool we have being poached by what I'm called in my business headhunters, traveling groups that are saying, if you, and this is what I was told, if you come to us, we'll pay you $150 or $200 an hour to come here to an out-of-state facility. There was a decision made not to go that direction in putting this into those areas. When hospitals were shut down, and I'm not trying to point fingers, this is just how it worked. A lot of hospitals laid off staff because they couldn't do elective procedures. Those individuals went to other states because they were given incentive pay to come to those states. And I was told that one group they just lost was paid $7,500 a week to come and work 5 days a week. And they left. So we don't have the pools of suppliers here. And in talking to the respective entities who deal, when you think about ARH, the Catholic system, the Baptist system, others, the only thing they can do right now is basically what I would call intra-state poaching. Norton's hiring from U of L. Well, that doesn't help the overall system. It just shifts the deck chairs. And so we're going to have to leave it to the governor's office to see how we go back out and get into an interstate labor pool, because we don't have the labor pool here right now, except for what we're doing to expedite certifications either locally or if they transfer in by recognizing their certification from another state. So as you read this, this is to the extent we feel we can go with basic directions, but not being so prescriptive. And it is by far more complex than just saying go out and hire people, because, as I say, this is what I call a negative labor pool. It's not expanding. It's not the same. It's actually shrinking or has shrunk beyond the demands we currently have. So that is an explanation of the bill, Mr. Chairman. If there are any questions, I would please accept them.
Thank you. This time, does anybody in the committee have a question? Senator West.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to hit on the subject of the employment. We don't have enough ICU beds, enough COVID beds, and it's not because we don't have beds. It's clearly because of staffing, as you've said. I know what your bill covers in your discussions with the governor, and I know we have the senior advisor to the governor here. I may want to put him on the spot, and he can probably chime in. With other ARPA funds, if the governor gets to a point where he decides he wants to do these incentives to bring in out-of-state employees, does he have that capability now under ARPA? Have you discussed that?
It is a good question about asking what the federal guidelines are, and you'll hear this term guidances about what it can be used for. There was a $134 million pool, I think, and I know there was a pool. The number is my question. There was a pool of I'm certain on the amount. I'm uncertain on it. May have been even higher than 134 million, which was defined as essential personnel pay. A lot of states directed their money in that realm. I think Arkansas, Texas, others, I don't want to, but I'm not sure even if we had the money,
Right.
you could have the personnel. And this becomes the reason for not directing it at a new clinic being set up in the area of the monoclonal clinic, because talking to the 4 hospitals in my area and others, they're doing it. And if you went in and set up a clinic, where's your labor pool to set the new clinic up? That labor pool, let's say it's in Lexington, either has to come from Baptist or UK. So you're just rearranging the deck chairs. Now, if there was a lot of unemployed, you could bring them there. So, and this is another thing which I will agree with the governor. He said we could enable the National Guard to come in, but more than likely when you bring National Guard nurses, National Guard doctors, National Guard, whatever they may be in the healthcare realm, you're basically taking them from their daytime job, which is the same thing, and just reshuffling the deck chairs.
Right. Thank you.
Anyone else? Senator Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I had the opportunity last week to meet with the administration and at various levels at Baptist Health Paducah. And in relation to the nursing shortage, the one piece of advice that I was given that was unanimous is that we need to invest more to allow our schools to get more nursing students through the system. And that's in labs at vocational schools, 4-year universities, in expanding their programs. That needs to be where we invest. I know we can't do that right now, but once the session starts, I hope that is a focus.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You're exactly right. And this needs to be a wake-up call to the universities. I know one university did not want to do extended campus programs because they wanted to do the programs on their campus where they got the ability to get the housing and meal plans, which is the gravy part of their system. The universities will either expand these programs because we are already at a shortage. Let's be realistic. We are at a shortage of healthcare providers. So if the universities don't start opening these individuals up to qualified people, going to where there are pools of students, if they don't do it, then I say it's going to be incumbent on the General Assembly to tell them to do it and mandate they do it.
Senator McGarvey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. President Stivers, just wondered if we had any cost estimates on the providing test and stay in a district like Jefferson County.
You know, that was an interesting question that was brought up in the last meeting by, I believe, Senator Thomas, that it said it could range from 16 to 60 million. So I did some quick figuring, and I asked staff to pull what a test would cost. And if you want to look at what the over-the-counter test, which I've taken on occasion because I'm going to go see my 88-year-old mother-in-law and father-in-law. So we've tested just to make sure. Those are about $20 a piece for two. If you want to double it, because in healthcare they always double everything, let's say $40 a test. Well, if you take 16 million divided by 40, I think that's about $400,000 tests a day. So I don't ever see it going to that on a daily basis, but you can extrapolate out, however it is at $40 a test. But I can't see it going to, and if you give me a minute, I'll get my calculator out on my iPhone. For it to hit $60 million at $40 a test, you would be doing 1.5 million tests a day, 1/3 of the total state's population, which that's not the school-age population.
No, if I could have just to follow up quickly, and you know this, President Stivers, they say at trial, never ask a question you don't know the answer to. This isn't trial, so I'm really asking these questions.
I'm trying to give you figures. That's what the cost is and the parameters. And there's a whole series of assumptions.
And I don't know the answer to these questions. I'm just asking because, for so many of us who either, like me, have children in the Jefferson County school systems or represent those areas, in factoring in those costs, can anyone at the school give these tests, or does it have to be licensed medical professionals in some way?
Well, as I understand it, and I may have to defer to Senator Givens, as I understand it, the way they have done it at Greene County, and Senator Wise just sent me something that ARH had a proposal for a 6-county area in northeastern Kentucky. It was one of the nurses or certified personnel with a federally qualified healthcare clinic that was helping the Greene County, Russell County, and I'm not sure what the other school system was, a 3-school system in doing that. But it was not a teacher, as I understand it, and Senator Givens could probably give you a better answer than I.
And I appreciate that. And, I had a reporter ask me about this test and stay process earlier in the week, and I tell you the same thing I told them. I'm for things that work and are safe and protect our kids. But also with Jefferson County, you mentioned the school systems in Russell and Greene, we have 170 schools just within that one school system. And as we look at this, getting qualified medical personnel, making sure we have the tests, I just want to make sure while we're up here that we account for those differences that are in the Jefferson County school system as we implement programs like this. Thank you.
I have no doubt that it is always harder in some circumstances to have logistical capabilities in larger groups. Sometimes it's not.
Very well. Senator Givens.
Mr. Chairman, a brief response because the Greene County program was referenced and I'm very familiar with it. Senator McGarvey, I do believe that in many of these counties and in many of the districts, a partnership with a local healthcare provider is the initial step that's involved. We do need licensed folks doing the testing, and that's what's prescribed in every one of the test and stay models that I'm familiar with. The pay is typically, as I understand it, and I certainly will be corrected if I'm wrong. I've got a message into my superintendent right now to verify this. But because of that partnership with a local health care provider who can bill private insurance, Medicaid, and Medicare, it's billed as if an office visit occurred, as in so many other circumstances. Now, if that's not correct, I'll be corrected. I'm confident because my colleague likes to get it right. My superintendent likes to get it right. But I think the other thing I'd like to take just a moment and magnify is the excitement I have about Fayette County now, venturing forth and doing a pilot project of test and stay in their district. So we're seeing the larger districts like Fayette say, this is something we want to try. And again, I think that reflects on the positive commitment so many of these educators have to get these children in the classroom in a safe fashion. And I'm excited to see what Test and Stay has to offer.
Very well. All right. At this time, seeing no other, I'll entertain a motion on the bill. Senator Nemes, do I have a second? Senator West. Secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Carroll. Senator Caslin. Senator Givens. Senator Kerr. Senator McGarvey. Senator Meredith. Senator Nemes. Senator Webb. Senator West. Chairman McDaniel.
Aye. 9 ayes, no nays. Measure passes. Congratulations, sir. All right, next up we have Senate Bill 5. Senator Stivers, you going to stay here or are we going to bring somebody else up? All right, very well. Leaders Thayer and Adams, come on forward. You guys would both identify yourself for the record and proceed.
I'll go first, Damon. Julie Rocky Adams, Senate, I had to think about it, Senate District 36.
Damon Thayer, Senate District 17, and wingman to Senator Adams.
Welcome to the best committee in the General Assembly.
You know,
Please
Mr.
proceed.
Chairman, I try to make it a habit of not appearing before your committee because you are very difficult in your questioning, and so I like to stay away. But no, I'm really excited to be here today. This was a late development as far as leadership was concerned, with some economic opportunities that seem to be percolating across our states. We did sign a non-disclosure agreement, so we have to be vague about specifics, but I was very proud to step up and sponsor this bill because I think that a rising tide lifts all boats. And so I think as we move forward on this, it's excellent. What you will see in the bill before you is we have $1.7 billion in our trust fund surplus right now, and we're going to spend $410 million from that surplus to offer these economic incentives. These economic incentives are not new policy; they are current policy. We are just trying to front load these initiatives so that we can capture some of the opportunities that are out there right now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I don't co-sponsor or sponsor a lot of bills, but I was happy to co-sponsor this with Senator Adams because of the unique perspective I have living in Scott County in Georgetown, 5 minutes from the Toyota plant, where there are 10,000 jobs, citizens from 70 counties, many of them your constituents who drive to Georgetown every day or stay in Georgetown during the week to work at Toyota. 100 different suppliers located around central Kentucky to help Toyota with its just-in-time delivery manufacturing process. As Senator Adams said, we, members of leadership, have been briefed by the Cabinet for Economic Development twice on the possibilities offered by the passage of Senate Bill 5. We've signed a non-disclosure agreement, so we are bound by that agreement and not allowed to discuss any of the details. But I can tell you that there are several projects that our Commonwealth is competing for right now in more than one region of the state. And to quote Forrest Gump, that's all I have to say about that. We're not allowed to give any other details, although some of it may have already leaked out. But nonetheless, we signed it and we're going to keep it. I'm here today because I've seen what incentives like this can do for Kentucky. I live it every day in Georgetown with Toyota, and the fact that it has changed the face of the economy in Kentucky. Georgetown remains for the second 10-year census period the fastest growing city in Kentucky, and Scott County the fastest growing county. And of course, we are at the intersection of two major interstates, but that's part of the reason Toyota chose the location. But also, we need to keep in mind that we remain a very competitive place for manufacturing. As a matter of fact, for automotive manufacturing, we are only behind Michigan and Ohio when it comes to automobile production, with the Ford truck plant, the Corvette plant in Bowling Green, and of course the Toyota plant in Georgetown. And part of the reason that Toyota chose Georgetown 30-some years ago to be its first North American location, now there are, I think, 11, was because of the incentives that Governor Martha Lane Collins was able to shepherd through the legislature back then. And there were a lot of doubters. I didn't live here then, but those of you who remember that, I see Senator Webb nodding her head, there were a lot of doubters. And look, politically, it'd be very easy for me to be a doubting Thomas or a doubting Thayer on this. But I have to believe what the governor and what the cabinet is telling us. And we're in competition with other states that are offering to just write blank checks. What we're doing is taking existing incentives and through Senate Bill 5, adding present value to the incentives. Like Senator Adams said, a front loading of the incentives. So Senator Adams and I would not be here today if we didn't believe that we were in the running and that we need these incentives to help land these projects. There are more than one. We could land one, we could land two. We could see it benefit one region of the state, or we could see it benefit two regions of the state. And I'd like to think that the business environment that we created back in 2015, 2016, by making Kentucky a right-to-work state, adding money to workforce development training, which this bill continues to build upon. I happen to think that no matter who the governor is today, I'd like to think the work of those of us who were here a few years ago making Kentucky's business environment much more friendly is part of the reason why we are here today considering Senate Bill 5. So we have with us today in the audience our former colleague, Rocky Adams, senior advisor to the governor.
Adkins.
What did I say?
Adams.
Yeah, I always get you guys confused.
I know, right?
And I'm sure if we need to defer to them, Mr. Leader, we will.
Yes, and we have Katie Smith, who's the Deputy Secretary of Economic Development Cabinet. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It happens.
Rocky, I'm sorry. And Katie's available for questions if you have any specifics relating to the detail now that I have inadvertently added levity to today's committee meeting.
Very well. Well, thank you guys both for the presentation today. I've got a couple of questions from up here. We're going to start with Senator Webb.
Mostly a comment, Mr. Chairman. I'm glad to see you all here today and speaking in such a manner, cooperation spirit for the good Commonwealth. And I know our leader's familiarity and acknowledgement of the automotive industry and his family history. And but I can vouch for everything he said. And I was shaking my head because as a young staffer for House leadership, back in the 80s, tell my age, but what the heck. I was presented with a bill as an analyst for the speaker, and of course, our relationship with the Governor Collins, and about Toyota. And I had to do the analysis on that, and there was some, not only doubters, there were some potential constitutional issues as well that we were concerned about, but we did that. My analysis was pro Toyota, pro incentives, and it turned out okay. And we all do have constituents that work in your district and spend money there, so that worked. And I'll support this, and I'm glad to see you all working in a manner of cooperation and bipartisanship, because that's what it's all about. And whatever region this benefits, it benefits us all. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. And I do want to point out that even though we talk about the financial component of these incentives, there also are protections included in this bill, to your point, for the naysayers. And so we do feel as if it's a solid protection for the taxpayers of Kentucky.
Senator Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just the structure of the KEDFA loans, I'm assuming that's going to be consistent. And I've heard a couple questions with the issues we had with Brady Industries and concerns about that. So will this loan or loans be consistent with what we've done in the past?
First, I'm Katie Smith, Deputy Secretary of the Cabinet. The way that the loans will be structured are similar to like our KBI program. We will be monitoring for the jobs and wage targets, and as long as they meet at least 90% of the targets, then their annual payment will be forgiven. If they only meet 50%, say, of the job target, then they'll be forgiven 50% of that annual payment, and then they'll have to repay the 50%, the remaining balance.
Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Very exciting times. Thank you all for your work.
Thank you, sir. Senator West.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for bringing the bill. And, if you're going to, as Senior Advisor Rocky Atkins knows, played at Morehead State, if you're going to win, you got to first be in the game, right? You got to there's a competition, and this puts us in the game. And I'm very excited that we're competing with probably some pretty big players. My question kind of goes along with Senator Carroll's questioning. If we do lose, let's say there's nothing happens whatsoever. We're out. Can we be assured there's no monies expended in that case?
You are correct. If we lose and we're not awarded the project, then there will be no approval, there will be no loan agreement, there will be no loan, there will be no disbursements. So, and then but the money will be available for us to use on the next project to try to win that one.
Senator Meredith.
Thank you, sir. And very interesting proposition. Anytime we can bring jobs to Kentucky, certainly it garners some excitement. But what we're hammering on most often is corporate handouts. We get that all the time. And this may sound like a rhetorical question, don't mean it as such, but just to kind of get it on the record, are these incentives consistent with what other states are doing?
Yes, actually other states are doing more of an upfront cash disbursement. Ours will be, as you mentioned, front-loaded, but we'll be dispersing it over the construction period. So it's not going to be one lump sum as what other states are doing.
And I assume as much, and again, just for the record, as general public has to understand, for us to be competitive nationally, we have to provide these incentives because everyone else is. Otherwise, we can sit on the sidelines and it doesn't do any good. So I appreciate the bill and look forward to the developments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. There.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That is an excellent question, Senator Meredith. I'm sensitive to the whole quote unquote corporate welfare narrative. But in fact, as Deputy Secretary Smith said, other states have better incentives than we do. They're just writing checks. But hopefully, as Senator West said, this puts us in the game to compete. This doesn't guarantee success. It just puts us in the game. And hopefully there are other elements of Kentucky that will help us win the day over the check writing states. Our interstate system, our waterway system, our rail system, our access to major airports, really all of the transportation elements, the quality of life in Kentucky for their employees, I think is going to be a major factor. The fact that we are a right-to-work state, although I'm quite sure we're competing against right-to-work states, that probably helped us also get in the game to get to this point. So I think that's a great question, but I think that the taxpayers in Kentucky would reap the rewards of this long term as these jobs, these well-paying jobs are created, and people live not only in the areas where a plant could be located, but also, as we found with Toyota, a 2-3 hour radius. You know, people coming into one community to work and then going back home to live and spend their money and raise their families and send their kids to school there. And you know, these projects are dispersed out over different regions of the state. The potentials. I don't think I've violated the NDA by saying that. So I think I wouldn't be here with Senator Adams, and I know she wouldn't either, unless this would be an excellent return on the investment of the taxpayers of Kentucky.
Senator Nemes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mine is a question and some comments, if you'll indulge me, please.
First of all, Senator Nemes, bear with me one quick second. I messed up. Senator Meredith had a follow-up that I didn't recognize. So, Senator Meredith, we'll come right back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief. And I appreciate your follow-up, Senator Thayer. It's true. But I think, as Senator Adams has referenced, I think Brady is still fresh in everyone's mind. And what we're being asked to do today is take a leap of faith. And that's a little bit of a stretch for us because of, our current governor hasn't built a relationship with our legislature. So it's just not you folks saying take a leap of faith here. It's our governor who's taking a leap of faith. And I'm willing to take that leap of faith today, but I hope this is the beginning of maybe a different relationship than we've seen in the past, and we can have more frequent conversations with the governor about these things and the direction our state is heading. And I hope that if this all comes to fruition and we're wildly successful, that the success is shared with the legislature as well as the executive branch. That's what this is all about, is building symbiotic relationships in the state, and that's what's been missing for so many years. But thank you, Mr. Chair.
Very well. All right, now Senator Nemes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This has to be a decent opportunity. My friend Rocky Atkins is here with Senator Thayer and Senator Adams, and especially with Chairman McDaniels even hearing this, there has to be an opportunity here. Because these are people that they are not naysayers, but they are specific and want to make sure things are right. So, that makes me look up and say this has to be something. My question is, first of all, let me address Brady Industry. That was not necessarily a bad decision. It was a bad outcome. And we learned from that, as you all testified here, on stops that we are going to put into this to keep that from happening again. And you mentioned more than one project. Is it one particular company with maybe satellites, or is this different projects that you can use this money for? And I love when people talk about a handout. This is more incentivized, especially I love the training coming from the Labor Cabinet. So can you answer that?
I'm going to answer it for you.
Thank you.
And I think that what we have to remember here, Senator, and Ms. Smith, if you want to correct my statement, you feel free to go ahead. This is any project that meets these qualifications. While they have specific knowledge of specific individuals, this is any project that meets these qualifications. So it could be things that are known or also potentially unknown. It could be that this attracts some attention otherwise. So I don't think, while we talk about there are specifics behind this, this is also a generality to allow us to be more competitive in the modern environment.
Thank you.
You're correct.
Okay. Very well. Okay. Seeing no others, and just to kind of touch exactly back to what Senator Meredith said and Senator Thayer touched on, and I've said it before here, I do not like economic development incentives at all. I think that states and municipalities ought to strictly compete on tax code and environment. But they are a reality of modern business attraction. And if we're going to best represent our citizens and give them the best opportunities, we don't get to live in a world of we wish it were this way. We have to live in the world that actually exists. And these are a reality. And I appreciate your all's work on them, and I appreciate the bipartisan, bicameral effort to try to make very solid opportunities come to fruition. So thank you. Motion from Senator Carroll, second from Senator Meredith. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Carroll. Senator Caslin. Senator Givens. Senator Kerr. Senator McGarvey. Senator Meredith. Senator Nemes.
Aye.
Senator Webb. Senator West.
Aye.
Chairman McDaniel.
Aye, there being 9 aye votes, no nay votes, the measure does pass. Congratulations, guys. Once again, appreciative of your efforts.
Awesome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Very well.